Hello S1 and welcome to your next lesson in the settlements topic. Today we're going to look at solutions to traffic problems in urban areas. So in your jotter, if you want to take the new heading for today, which is solutions to traffic problems in urban areas, or if you're doing this in a Word document, if you want to type up solutions to traffic problems in urban areas. So solving traffic problems in urban areas. What we're looking to do today is to learn about how we can lessen the effects of traffic in cities and towns. By the end of the lesson, you should be able to do the following two things. So firstly, describe and explain possible solutions to traffic problems in urban areas, and consider the environmental impacts of certain approaches to traffic reduction. So we're going to describe and explain what solutions we can come up with to the problems of traffic in our urban areas, and to consider the impact that these can have on the environment. So solving traffic problems in urban areas. Now there are two main ways to do this. Allow private transport to increase and make improvements to cope with this. So allow more people to use their cars, but try and make improvements to cope with this. Or restrict private transport and discourage people from driving cars into towns and city centres. Now this would mean improving public transport such as bus and train services. Now, firstly, what we're thinking about is what is meant for task number one by public transport and what is meant by private transport. And I've just given you two examples there. So it says here, try and give examples for each type of transport. So what do we mean by public transport, what is meant by private transport, and try and give an example for each. So you want to pause the video at this point to complete this task. Okay, task number two. What you're going to do is take a new page in your jot. Now, if you've used less than half the page for the last task, then half a page should be enough for this. What you're going to do is to draw a T-chart in your jotter with the headings encourage private transport and encourage public transport. So it should look something like this. So what you're going to do is to use the arguments on the next slide and make at least 3 points for encouraging private transport and 3 points for encouraging public transport. So what's the arguments for encouraging private transport? 3 points for that, and 3 points for encouraging public transport. Now here are your arguments here. Now I've done the first one for you. So it says here better traffic management, so i.e. roundabouts, one-way systems, etc. So that would be an argument for encouraging private transport. We've got here improved public transport, i.e. reduce fares, increase speed and comfort, develop rail routes like the Underground, London Underground. So that would be an argument for encouraging public transport. So you have an argument there for encourage private, an argument there for encourage public. So you're looking for two more on each side. So I'm going to put the arguments up and you need to decide which part of your T-chart they would go into. So you've got more off-street parking. So would that be encouraging private or encouraging public? Urban motorways to improve traffic flow. So is that encouraging private or encouraging public? Park and ride schemes, leave your cars on town outskirts travelled by free bus to centre. So is that encouraging public or encouraging private? Make car parking more difficult, i.e. increase charges, reduce spaces. So is that encouraging private transport? Is that looking to encourage public? Bypasses to keep through traffic out of towns. And congestion charges, i.e. motorists have to pay to use busy areas. So that's your arguments there. So you need to try and find 3 for encouraging private and 3 for encouraging public. Okay, and here's the answers you could have had. So we went over the first two. So the next one, more off-street parking. Well, that's encouraging private transport, allowing people more spaces to park in. Urban motorways to improve traffic flow. Again, that's encouraging private traffic by improving the motorways. Park and ride schemes, so leave your car in town outskirts and travel by free bus to the centre, so that's encouraging the use of public transport. Make car parking more difficult, so again that's encouraging public transport to discourage people to use their cars. Bypasses to keep through traffic out of town, so that's encouraging private transport by building bypasses. And then congestion charges, i.e. motorists have to pay to use busy areas, so again that's trying to encourage people to use public transport. Now task number 3, approaches for discouraging private transport. Now, there's a number of approaches that have been taken to discourage private transport and try and encourage people to use public transport. So we've got the tram system in Edinburgh, so the Edinburgh tram scheme has cost an estimated £776 million. We've got park and ride schemes, so cars are parked outside the city and buses take motorists into the city centres. We've got congestion charging, so every private vehicle that drives into the city centre has to pay a charge. In London, this is £11.50 per day. And making parking more difficult, so high parking charges and fines for parking in certain areas illegally. Now, for each of these approaches here, what you're looking to do is write down one advantage and one disadvantage for each. So the trams, for example, just to give you an example here. So one advantage might be that they're right in the middle of the city centre, so they're easy to use. One disadvantage might be that they cost a lot of money. So try and give an advantage and a disadvantage for each of these approaches. So again, if you want to pause the video at this point to complete this task. And then what I want you to think about is why do you think, or what do you think is the best approach, and try and write this in your jotter as well. Now, coping with larger volumes of traffic. Now, one approach which accommodates increases in private transport is to build a bypass to keep through traffic out of urban areas. Now, there are several local examples of this. So you've got bypass at Forfar, you've got Glamis, you've got Cooper Angus, and you've got Brecon. So they keep traffic out from the middle of towns and cities by going through bypasses. Now, task 4, you've got bypass here, Hayden Bridge case study. Now, bypasses reduce the amount of traffic in a town. However, building a bypass always has some disadvantages. Bypasses are expensive to build, and a suitable route has to be found which causes the least disruption and damage to the environment. Now, carefully study the diagram on the next slide, and this shows a planned bypass route for a town in northern England. What you need to try and do is list all the disadvantages of the red, blue and yellow planned bypass routes, and try and think which route do you think the bypass should take and why. So here is your diagram here. So you have the red, the blue and the yellow possible bypass routes. So you need to list what do you think would be the disadvantages of each of these bypasses. Now, if you look closely at the diagram, it labels some parts that maybe the bypass would go through. So think about what disadvantages there might be, and also think about which bypass you think would be the best. Okay, task number 5, the last task of this lesson, Meagle bypass. So you're going to read this statement from a resident of Meagle. A bypass should be built around Meagle so that cars travelling between Forfar and Perth no longer have to pass through the village. Now, do you agree or disagree with this statement? So you're going to give a reason for your answer. So do you think that yes, a bypass should be built around Meagle so that people travelling between Forfar and Perth don't need to go through the village, or do you disagree with this? Okay, so over to you. What you're going to upload via Teams from this lesson is task number 1, what is public and private transport? Task number 2, your arguments for private versus public transport. Task number 3, the approaches to discouraging private transport. So what is the advantage and disadvantage of them? Task 4, your bypass task, and task 5, the Meagle bypass. What's your opinion on that? If you have any issues at all about anything discussed in this lesson, then just let your class teacher know. Thank you.